Today I'm behind the wheel of 2015 Tesla Model S P90D. This is the performance variant with dual motors, and it is very, very, very fast. In fact, in 2015, this was the fastest car on the road. And even today, it's still one of the fastest cars on the road. Now, this one that I'm reviewing belongs to my very good friend, and he's a Tesla nut. He has Tesla in his blood. In fact, he has a statue of Elon Musk in front of his yard. And he's been begging me to review this Model S for a while now because he thinks it is a fantastic car and one of the best that he's ever owned. So I'm here to find out if that's true. So in this review video, I'm going to show you guys the ins and outs, of course, tell you how it drives, and lastly, compare it to some of the cars from today so you guys can decide if this is the right Tesla or right car for you. Stay tuned. So let me start out with just how good this Model S looks. It really has a presence even today. On paper, on the website, wherever you're looking at, if you haven't seen it in person, it looks smaller than it is on paper, but when you approach it, you realize just how wide and long this Model S is and how low to the ground. And even though there's a curvy shape to it, it still looks very good in my opinion. So starting with the front, this is a 2015. In 2016, Tesla upgraded the front bumper. They pretty much removed the middle grille area and just made everything more sleek. However, even this one, it still looks good. In a way, it kind of looks like a fish to me, but in a good way, one that I would like to eat and one that I would like to drive around every day. It kind of has that vibe, but it somehow works. You know what? Under the hood is not an engine. Under the hood is actually a trunk. And take a look, there's a large container in here, and you could fit a lot of things, definitely groceries and even other items up there. So that's nice. You have actually two trunks in this Model S, which no other car really can say that. Now, moving to the side, the profile, the silhouette shape, you know, I think it's just a really good blend of a sports car and a sedan. It just looks good, especially with the optional 21-inch wheels that you see here. They're like a dark gray finish, and they look fantastic. Usually, I'm not a fan of chrome on the outside, but with this black, it really matches and it really looks good. And same thing with the back. This is how you could tell how wide a Model S is. You know, the rear wheel haunches are absolutely huge, but they're blended in a good way. This Model S has a hatchback back. When you open it, you have an enormous trunk underneath, which you don't see much of from sedans. So that's also the beauty and the practicality that you get from this Model S. However, on the outside, you really can't tell. It's still shaped like a normal sedan. Kind of has that fastback look, but overall, man, it just looks good with the LED taillights. And underneath, of course, there's no fake exhaust tips. There's no need. Tesla isn't trying to pretend and put exhaust back there like you see with a lot of other manufacturers. Now, let's move to the inside. I think the design, the overall look still looks good today, but there are some inefficiencies and just some things that Tesla overlooked. So in the second row, even though it's plenty wide, it's not as spacious as you would think. I'm 5'10", and you can see behind my driving position, I only have about 2-3 inches of legroom, and surprisingly, only 2-3 inches of headroom too, and that's only because the sunroof is up there, or the glass is up there, I should say. Otherwise, there would be almost no headroom. You could see, in fact, I could hit my head on the side. So there's actually not that much room back there. And also what's surprising is there's not one single cup holder in the second row. Normally you see at least something, right, on the door panels. No, nothing on the door panels, nothing under the vents, and there's no center armrest area that you can fold out for cup holders either. So Tesla just kind of figures that you have no kids, or if you have kids, they're not allowed to drink anything ever in your Tesla because you don't want them to spill on your gorgeous leather seats. Those are only two reasons I can think of, because there's no cup holders back there at all. There's also no USB ports back there. So you're gonna have to keep your kids entertained yourself. They can't charge their Switch or iPads or anything like that. You're on your own. Now moving up front, it's a little bit different. There's still some inefficiencies, but Tesla really wows you with a few things. First of all, when you get in, you're like, where is the start button? I need to press the start button to start it. No, you don't need to. It knows already that you're in the car, and all you have to do is step on the brake pedal and the accessories turn on, and you're really pretty much good to go. And if you really want to drive, there's a shifter stock that's pulled from Mercedes, and you know what? You can put in park, drive, neutral, all the usual stuff, and away you go. Also, the door handles open as you approach, which is nice. And there's two screens in here. You're surrounded by two large screens. One that is your digital gauge cluster, and two, a 17-inch screen. And it's because of Tesla with this huge screen, they kind of forced the industry to move the same way. Now you're seeing a lot of manufacturers put an enormous screen just for the sake of having an enormous screen, even though they're not all that useful. The one in the Tesla actually is, because you pretty much control everything you could think of in this 17-inch screen. But before I get to that, the gauge cluster, pretty simple. It has a clean interface. On both sides, you could configure what you want to see, like your energy, your TPMS, your music, navigation. So you can configure what you want to see on the left side, right side, in the middle, kind of like your digital speedometer. There's no tachometer anywhere. There's no use to show RPMs, because it just doesn't really matter in this car. And there's a whole bunch of sensors and stuff like that that'll show you, like blind spot monitoring. That's one of the things where you don't see it on your mirrors or anywhere near the mirrors. You can see it in your gauge cluster, but it doesn't show up on the mirror. So that's one of the little things you have to get used to. The steering wheel is really, really thick. The design looks a little bit dated in 2020 now, but it still feels pretty good. The leather is a little bit slippery though, I would say that. But overall, it's a steering wheel. It gets the job done. But I'll let you guys know how the steering feels once I get to it. Now, as for this infotainment screen, so right off the bat, I have to apologize because of the refresh rate. It's kind of blinking right on the screen. So if you don't like that, there's nothing I can do. I can't make it any better. But with this infotainment screen, you can pretty much control everything. The quick controls, for example, you can open or close your sunroof, your front trunk, your rear trunk, your fog lights, your mirrors, all that good stuff. Under suspension, you can change your ride height. You can also set it so that it automatically lowers after a certain amount of speed. Under driving, you can change your steering, your regenerative braking, how aggressive it is. In acceleration, I already put it in something called Ludicrous Plus. Okay, not just Ludicrous, Ludicrous Plus. This is how you get the most power from this Model S, and I'm just gonna leave that standard. And then there's other things that you could change about Autopilot, how your vehicle behaves, your safety features, your navigation, all that good stuff. Everything you can think of pretty much is in here. Now, I mentioned about the Ludicrous Plus, right? There's dual motors in here, one in the front, one in the rear. That's how Tesla gets all-wheel drive. They're electronically controlled. And you're getting over 600 horsepower in here. Now, the figures is a little iffy, because the way Tesla calculates horsepower is a little bit different depending on which year you're looking at. But just know that horsepower is in a 600 plus range, and it's a lot of power because the torque comes on instantly. Because these are electric motors, there's no waiting. You know how turbo engines generate more torque at a low RPM? This one generates 100% of the torque right off the bat. So it's a lot. 0 to 60 is under 3 seconds. I'm reading it's about 2.8 seconds, which is just ridiculous. And quarter mile around 10 seconds is like high 10s or low 11s. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous to have this kind of performance in a sedan that you can drive daily. So if I have an opportunity, I'm going to test out just how ludicrous this acceleration is. And there's no transmission. In a Tesla, they use some kind of reduction gear setup, and that's it. There's no CVT, there's no automatics, there's no shift shock, nothing like that. You just step on a pedal and away you go. So how does a Tesla Model S drive? Well, if you've never driven a pure electric car, you're in for a surprise because it's a very different kind of feeling. First of all, there's no engine noise of any kind, so you have to get used to that. If you're looking for a throaty V8, yeah, you're not gonna get it in here, although someone should think about creating an app that generates it because that would be really cool. But yeah, it's dead silent. So when you get in, it's like, okay, is the car even on? And once you start going, it's dead quiet, except there's a slight electrical whine from the motors. And I only hear it because the engine, the radio's off, I should say. And that's the only reason why I hear it, but outside of that, you just hear nothing. Another thing you have to get used to is the regenerative braking, which almost every single electric car or hybrid has. Every time you take your foot off the brake, you know that rolling comes to a stop much sooner than you expect. And it just takes getting used to. After you get used to it, some people are fine with it. They say that, you know, it means that they use less brakes. You know, you don't have to replace your brake pads as much. Right now I'm in standard. I'm gonna change it to low and see how it is. It still kind of feels the same. I just let off the gas. It still kind of feels like the same. Yeah, just something you have to get used to. Now, something else that you have to get used to, but you'll love this, is the instant acceleration. Okay, anytime, even slow speeds, getting up to 30 miles per hour, you know, getting out of your driveway, going on a slow road like this, you feel the torque instantly. Anytime you accelerate, you just get an instant amount of torque and away you go, and you don't even realize how fast you're going until you look down and you realize you're going like 100 miles per hour in the local neighborhood, and then you need to slow down. But yeah, that's just how it is. And I haven't tested this Ludicrous Plus mode yet. I hear you actually get sick from it because it's that fast. The suspension is actually pretty good. There's air suspension for lowering and raising the height, but this year didn't get the adaptive suspension. However, even with the large 21-inch wheels, it feels pretty good. You have a good tight feeling, but it's not uncomfortable. I wonder how the adaptive suspension is, and I would love to compare the two later on. Our little things like ventilated seats, you know, that's very common these days. That doesn't exist, so on a hot day, you really wish you have it with leather seats. So ventilated seats not available. Also like a 360 view, which is really surprising because Teslas have so many cameras and sensors all around for Autopilot. So I'm surprised that there's no 360 view camera set up in here yet. So that's kind of surprising. So things like that are missing. What's also missing up here are good cup holders. I mean, there's a couple here that's hidden under the armrest, but it's in a very awkward position where you don't want to put any drinks there. If you do, you can't rest your arm, and it's just a really weird spot. And also underneath the screen here, you just have a whole bunch of space, and that's it. There's nowhere to put anything. There's a little shelf space under the screen, but there's just a whole lot of wasted space here. And I know the newer Model S's have changed that, but this one, I don't know. It's just space. That's pretty much it. Other features like wireless charging, heads-up display, not available. I don't know if a heads-up display is really necessary with so many screens already, but it's one of those things that most modern cars have. USB ports, there's 2 of them in here, and that's it. A little bit lacking, but you know what? I'm nitpicking, right? And that's how Tesla feels because they concentrate on software first, and you get continuous over-the-air updates, and this Tesla just feels new all the time because of the updates you get. you come into your car and then you see all these new things pop up and new features, and that's what Tesla drivers love. They could care less about USB ports or wireless charging. All right, so now I'm on a freeway. Unfortunately, I can't test out acceleration because there's so many cars, but I can test out the autopilot. So there's an autopilot like stock over here that I do twice, and that's it. On the digital cluster, the roadway turns blue, and then there's also like a blue steering wheel that pops up, and it says keep your hands on the wheel, but you just have to kind of slightly hold it, and away you go. Let's see how good it is. There's a big bend coming. This is where most other manufacturers, their semi-autonomous driving struggles with. They can't really keep the car in between the lines. So look, no hands, right? And the Tesla is doing its thing. Even though I set at 60, it's going 50 right now because it is setting a distance between me and the person in front of me, and you could change how aggressive that is, whether or not it's a large gap or a smaller gap. So you could change all that. But right now, you know, you guys saw it's taking these bends, and I have my hands off. It's a weird feeling because I feel like I need to take over at any time, but this Tesla is very, very good at it. And many Tesla owners love to take long road trips because they pretty much turn on autopilot and away it goes. And this is not the full autonomous driving that you can get on a newer S and a newer Teslas. Those are insane. You set a navigation destination, and the Tesla just drives for you. You really just don't even have to do anything. Lane changes, getting off ramps, on ramps, all that good stuff, it takes care of it for you, and that's pretty amazing. Now that I'm up to speed, about 55 miles per hour, as for noise level, it's still very good in here. Now, I did review Model X last year. In fact, I think that video is #1 on YouTube. If you guys are interested, you could click above now and check it out. But I remember on the highway, especially at high speeds, the Model X was quite loud. And I don't know if it's because the very big window up front that goes above your head. There's something about the Model X that made it really loud with wind levels for whatever reason. This Model S is quite good. You know, I don't really hear it outside. It's really well insulated, so I like it. I don't hear the road noise. I don't hear wind noise. Cars passing by, okay, slightly, but this is like a luxury car quietness, which is what you expect in a car of this price range. Now, while I'm at this light reflecting, you know, the cabin design is still okay. It doesn't look outdated, but it definitely could be better. The leather choice in here, I like the soft Napa leather. I think those feel a little bit better. That's not what you get in here, although everything is pretty much covered in leather. You know, the dash area is covered in the Alcantara. Same thing with the headliner, Alcantara material, so that's nice. Now the seats, surprisingly, pretty comfortable. A good combination between sports seats and comfort seats. They look really sporty, but because of the leather, I was expecting that I'm going to be just sliding out. No, the bolstering really done nicely. It's holding me in without being uncomfortable, and not once I felt like I was slipping out of my seat. The only nitpick I have is there's no ventilated seat. So on a day like today, I feel my back is a little sweaty. So that's the only thing I wish there was ventilated seats in here. Now the steering is quite good. I'm a big fan because it's very precise. There's no play at all. Very little movement like this, I can feel it. There's absolutely no play, and it's a good heaviness. Even though you can select comfort, standard, or sport, even in comfort, that has a good weight to it. So of course everything is artificial, electronic weight, but somehow it's satisfying and it works. Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. Wow, I wasn't even in launch mode. Okay, that was like up to about 50. I didn't even go to my normal 60. And when I did that, I felt a rush in my head I've never felt before. Like blood was rushing into my head from my body, and I felt like a pressure in my head that was not pleasant, and everything got pushed back in this car. That was crazy. That was crazy fast. I mean, wow. That is not something that you want to do all the time. Honestly, it'll probably make your head explode. That was crazy how fast that was. Yeah, you know all the videos you watch of people laughing or crying or giving some funny face when someone accelerates in a Tesla? It's true. Lastly, let's talk about the price, which I think is a big plus for this 2015 P90D. When new, this was around $100,000, and when you add in a lot of features like Autopilot, the bigger wheels, and all this and that, I mean, this was coming in around $120,000, $130,000, which is more than what most people could afford. But these days, you can find a nice low mileage one for around $50,000 to $60,000, which is still expensive, but it's about half of what it was 5 years ago. So Teslas do depreciate. However, it's slower than if you look at a lot of other luxury cars. And you're still getting a car that is still updating itself. Like, what other car can you get that's 5 years old that continuously updates its software, and you wake up one day and you still get new features? None. Only do you get that in Tesla. So is this amazing value for $50,000 or $60,000? I think so. I mean, there are a little inefficiencies here or there, lack of cup holders, lack of some optional features that you may find in cars in 2020. But are you going to find a car that will rush so much blood in your head when you accelerate it feels like it's going to explode? No, for this price range and everything else I mentioned. This is a fantastic deal, and this is one fantastic car. I can understand why my friend loves it so much. It is really amazing. The one thing I didn't mention in this video is about range for this P90D. Now, Tesla claims the P90D can achieve 268 miles of range on a single charge, but EPA rates it around 253 miles. For me, when I started this trip, I saw about 250-ish. Now, as for charging, you could charge at home with a Tesla home charger, or you can visit a supercharger station. There's 1,800 around the world, with close to 1,000 in the US alone. To conclude, I'm giving this 2015 Tesla Model S a score of 109. To see how it ranks among others in this class, check out driversonlyrankings.com. Thanks for watching. Hit the like and subscribe to the channel for more reviews, first looks, and news.